one thing
we've
we
written
need
that
to
one
do.
up kind of nicely.
Yeah,
in the
because
picture
that
apps.
needs to be.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not saying that this needs to be part, that probably wouldn't really, but I'm just saying that this is what it serves to represent.
So going back to what you were saying, following Davida, can we follow Davida without that representation? Only that.
I think we can, but we're still going to have to really focus on quality. No, that's
Quantity, this quantity and this quantity, we're comparing them, right?
Mhm.
So you be Davidoff and do a 1-minute lecture on how we make these comparisons.
We would begin by looking at them and comparing them and say, are they equal?
No.
No. So green is greater than purple.
Because purple doesn't cover green.
Right.
Green covers purple. Okay.
And then we would go on and green is greater than purple, therefore purple is less than green. And if we wanted to make them equal, what would we have to do?
And
we would have to do something to quantity.
And there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And that quantity is represented right here or right here. It's actually probably represented right here. Because this is the extra.
And that's the piece you would have to cut off of green.
And it doesn't matter as long
To make them
as
equal.
the proportionality of it, the difference pieces. And these are representations.
Or you would have to get.
Right.
Not actual things, but some kind
No.
of.
well,
I can't read
so,
it.
how do they conceptualize the two quantities between one but one cover the other?
No, that's a great problem. So that's one we should have.
Most of the kids that we would find would have done something lined up along one dimension. We would have put probably right there and said purple is more.
So,
And it still will represent one of these and one of these.
you have to use that
What is that representation of one of these? Like Jerry's talking about using it. What would it scales themselves be a representation of?
But they're not as clear because they're different like the strip and the
But then you transform it into a legal word.
Well, eventually squares would, because then you eventually would have your units.
Squares would be the unit of measure.
Right, because you would have
Yes. Yes.
and that's where you go to your ratios.
So we
Yeah,
need
and we have the nice thing where the kids could create their own square units with the
Mhm.
folding.
Are squares always the unit? I haven't looked around, I don't believe this is a cinder block, and I don't know whether cinder block, but cross sections of buildings oftentimes are cinder blocks, or walls, excuse me, are cinder blocks. And in a sense, to a brick builder, that's a unit of something.
But are we then
Oh.
in 3 dimensions?
Yeah, but then we're talking about.
But I'm talking about a wall. I mean,
The
they-
face?
A face.
Well,
We're using
in
rectangles.
area, we're talking about square units.
That's obviously a convention.
Mhm.
I mean, I would agree that that's where we want to go, but there are.
Oh, I've tried it as well with different non-squared units, but I think for the sake of the
Yeah.
time.
You wanted triangle units yesterday.
I've done triangular
Right.
units. No,
Yeah.
no, I've done,
Right, and so in the patterns, you're going to have.
you can, which is
You're
your,
going to have triangular units.
we can have triangular units.
Which comes back to our representation has to have that common unit of measure between the two of them for our.
So is that closer to what you're talking about? So if I do an exchange with you, two triangular units from the same mother square gets me your square.
Well, that would tell you it didn't matter how you represented the area of those triangles, the two triangles, they would stay the same. That how would we represent that quantity? I mean, the eventual goal is that quantity is the same.
So there it's more in a ratio, you know, it's 2 to 1.
Yeah. We wouldn't do it 2 to 1 a long time until we would do it.
No, even if you didn't state it, the kids
Yeah.
would know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how can we write a little note? Who's?
I'm not
te-
sure if this is needed.
No,
is what
no,
I'm saying.
here's what's needed. If we're having this conversation, you can bet that there's gonna be confusion with the teachers.
Mhm.
So we need to write up, one of us just quickly write up this note. Here's a potential area of confusion. And even if we don't have the solution for it this minute, it should be on the docket so that when we're in a better place to work through, you know, to me, in terms of priorities, this is here. I think we're still fundamentally in agreement, but we're down to, yeah, some ways, yes, we can represent it
Right.
like that, and some other ways it may cause confusions. Monica, you gonna give it a shot?
You can put in the trajectory, right?
I don't know if we don't wanna
Mess up the.
make it so heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once we have it, I think the more we could slim it down,
Yeah.
the better.
Because eventually, when you go to the ruler, this really is your ruler. It's just probably that dimension and longer.
No, I see that, but I also see what Monica's saying, and some of the parts where my mind bends to understand it as a line, and having it of the same,
Yeah.
that makes it easier, because then we can just look at the edge, because everything else cancels.
This, by the way, is a beautiful visual
No,
for how you, if you want to make the pieces and you have them.
And that's back to what I was suggesting
Yeah.
before with getting that odd piece and bringing it back
Making
in
it
there.
12,
But
yeah.
but because we had the conversation, there's something about it that's not so intuitive
Mm-hmm.
and a bit problematic, and we should just note it.
Okay.
Yes, I've also seen, I haven't done as much work with kids as anybody else in the room, but on this stuff, but the area and perimeter, there's a tremendous confusion that the perimeter is a single dimension. They don't get that, and that the perimeter and area, perimeter will stay the same while area changes. They don't get that. I've had teachers cry in meetings or ready to fight me because of that. It was, you know, it was so locked in on them, even
But-
with the evidence right in front of them.
So my
I don't need to
question
cry,
is,
but I've had that experience.
are we going there?
Where's there?
Area, perimeter, are we just saying?
Eventually, and
Quantity.
maybe not for this project.
Right.
Because
That's
I've already written that, and we can refer, if people want to go there, we don't have to redo that.
Right.
But for what we're trying to do is, again, I think we're gonna go back to the scaling, we're gonna go back to the tools and the operations within those tools. I think that's gonna give us plenty, but the foundation is gonna be wider
Mm.
and firmer, hopefully, to support those ideas. I don't think we'll have time for much else in the geometry side except possibly similarity,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
similar triangles, similar squares. acres or whatever the proper.
And the conservation.
Well, the conservation is
pretty
here.
central.
No, that's here, that's at the
Yeah.
foundation. You would hope that as the kids leave the foundation, they can start to conserve area more often than not, and that there would be a discernible difference between them and kids who didn't have this approach.
Mhm.
But after that, I think we're gonna go much more with the linear. Well, we will have the circular model, and we'll go to the square to, create square units, to create arrays for multiplying, distributive property. Some of that we can do, again, depending on when we run out of steam, given the amount that we're trying to do. We may pick up an extra year because they gave us that extra 150,000. If it bought us an extra year, possibly then we have a better chance there.